starting back up here. So we are now recording. So good morning, everyone. So again, disclaimer: the opinions voiced in this workshop are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect those of Providence St. Jude Medical Center. The content provided in this workshop is for informational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. Please consult with a healthcare professional for advice regarding any medical condition or treatment. And so, of course, confidentiality, while not mandated, please keep any and all information shared amongst ourselves confidential and within this virtual room. If any information that is shared that makes anyone reasonably suspicious that abuse of a child, elder, or dependent adult is occurring, I must break confidentiality in those circumstances. And so for Zoom etiquette, please remember to mute your microphone when you're not speaking to reduce the background noise. If you'd like to speak or ask a question, please use the hand raised function at the bottom of your screen. I'll also periodically ask for questions. Otherwise, please use the chat function and type in a question to chat with other attendees. And so, of course, sharing of any and all resources is greatly, greatly appreciated. And so as a reminder, these meetings are being recorded, as will each of the 12 sessions in this workshop series. There is an afternoon session that is longer than 1 hour and will not be recorded to facilitate discussion amongst ourselves. Should you be more comfortable with attending the later session instead? The recording will become available as soon as possible via email and our YouTube channel. The recording will only include presenter mode, so no one's video will be shared, and your voice will only be recorded if you speak. So otherwise, please use the chat function to answer questions or answers, as that will not show up on the recording as well. So chats will be avoided from the recording. All right, perfect. Good morning. We are in module 4 for memory, right? And so memory, when it comes to identifying memory, that is something that is it's a very common concern following brain injury, and so we are going to be diving into that symptom here today. So first, before we get into it, check in. How was your week? Right? Any difficulties using these? Any successes using the strategies? The core four here, right? Home for your stuff, automatic places, calendar, and a journal. Everyone able to successfully use these things and have them readily available? All right, we got head nods. Perfect. Love that. All right, so perfect. The homework, right, from last week was to write your personally meaningful 3-month goal, right? And then, if possible, to see if we could break that down to monthly, right? So that way we can begin to take progressive steps through our time here together. Right? Everyone write down a goal, personally meaningful goal, and maybe even if it makes it easier to break that down into monthly or weekly even, so everyone have their one goal. And of course, I know some goals are private, so if you're open to sharing, share the goal or give me a head nod that you have it. Okay, we got the head nods. All right, we have it. So remember the all right, good. I see the head nods. Perfect. Love that. So remember the goal is an important part of this workshop, so that way we can continue to ensure, right, the INCOG 2.0 guidelines. We can ensure that every exercise, everything that we do is towards a functionally meaningful activity. Right. And so number 2 was to track your sleep in your journal, right? Either good or bad quality or somewhere in between. So people were able to track their sleep, right? All right, good. And hopefully there were some things there. Maybe you noticed some patterns, right? So of course, remember to continue to take your notes in your journal, the brain dump that we talked about. So when you're feeling your mind being cluttered, getting those thoughts down, either just in 1 or 2 words, can be very helpful. And this also helps with logging meals, medications if you take them, and chores or to-do lists. So here is a if you're looking like, okay, yeah, I tracked my sleep. Maybe are there better ways to do it? And so in the slides, I also put in here the National Sleep Foundation put together a journal, right? So for tracking sleep, and so here starts with the day of the week. So each one of these pages is 1 week at a time. So here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then what time you went to bed, what time you woke up, what time you fell asleep, did you wake up, and then how'd you feel, and was it disturbed? So that way you can start to take notes to see trends, right, between your sleep and how you can move towards improving that, right? And also, in an effort to improve that, we have also included a couple of healthy sleep habits here, right? And so, of course, take the ones that might be helpful for you. Avoid daytime naps if you miss sleep. So, if you miss sleep, try to just go to sleep earlier the next day, as you know, daytime naps can disrupt and make it harder for you to fall asleep later, and then now you're in a cycle of disrupted sleep. And so trying to adopt a regular exercise regimen is also helpful for sleep, right? So you burn off the extra energy, right? And then you kind of set the stage for rebuilding of muscle, right? In the stages of sleep, in the deep sleep. And so limit your intake of caffeine, right? Especially in the afternoons, right? Particularly if you're sensitive, right? There has been some reported some sensitivities, right? Since then, so limit your caffeine intake, and don't take problems to bed. It causes restlessness, tossing, turning. And so there was a great suggestion earlier on in one of the earlier modules, like to spend the whole hour before sleep not doing anything, right? Just unplug, no computer, no TV, no phone, just sit, just don't do anything. And there was a neuropsychologist once told me that to practice the worry hour, where you take the whole hour before sleep to do all of your worrying, so that way by the time you go to sleep, you are ready and there are no worries left for you to worry about. And then, of course, adopting a regular sleep schedule, sleeping at the same time, waking up at the same time, even on the weekends, is helpful. And then trying not to force sleep. So, if you can't if you can't sleep, to wake up and do something and walk around for a little bit, just to get the edge off. And then establish a regular bedtime routine. So this is referring to sleep hygiene. So maybe the hour before bed, you have some hot chamomile tea, you turn down the lights, you give yourself a full 30 minutes to 60 minutes to rest and relax and to worry and to really prepare your mind and your body for sleep. And then this also prepares those cues for sleeping. So sleep, right? Really important. And of course, I can't emphasize enough. If you're not sleeping well, if you're not sleeping right, not good quality sleep, then you're gonna have a bad brain day the next day, right? You're gonna be cognitively foggy. It's gonna be hard to do things. And so taking what they call the low hanging fruit, right, to really target sleep, is an important thing towards improving function the next day. Yes, Kat, you had a question there?
Thank you. So after about 5 head injuries ago, I suddenly just can't sleep worth a diddly. I mean, every hour and a half I wake up. It doesn't matter what time I go to bed, how tired I am, every hour and a half I wake up. It's been like
Yeah.
that for years. So I did go get a sleep study, the home
Perfect.
one. It said obstructive sleep apnea, probably simply because that is the standard most people have. Um,
Right.
So struggling with the CPAP, I've sort of given up because I can't get my ears to pop. So now I've got anyway ear issues. But
Yeah.
from what I've read, central sleep apnea is a lot more common for head injury patients,
Mm,
and especially since it like started immediately after one of the
right.
blows to the front of my head. So whether I can get her to do a more in-depth sleep study in clinic, I don't know, but I'd rather have the obstructive because there are things that I'm working on doing, like losing some weight, things like that. But
Yeah.
do you address any of that type of sleep issues that come with head injuries? The central is pretty scary,
Yeah.
especially since I'm not seeming to be able to psychologically and physically deal with a CPAP machine. But I just don't, and maybe not here, but I just didn't know if you address, because when you don't get, any decent sleep and you're just waking up wired
Yeah.
every hour and a half, it's not helping my head injury issues.
100%, 100%. Yeah. So, I mean, there are a couple of things. So, for the obstructive sleep apnea, if that's what it is, but then you're having issues with the CPAP, there are various now innovations, right? The CPAP's no longer the big octopus on on your face. You can get small pillows now, and then even Aspire, which is it requires like a surgical implant, but
Okay.
an implant, so that way you don't have to deal with any mask or anything extra you have to put on before you sleep. So that's for obstructive sleep apnea. For central sleep apnea, there are a variety of like, so other than just apnea, there's tons of other sleep wake disorders, right? It could be like REM, it could be deep sleep, it could be in the sleep architecture, right? Where I mean, as like you go through the night, I believe as you go through the night, right, your REM and your deep sleep should be increasing and decreasing as the night goes on. And so these different sleep wake disorders, we have Dr. Stephanie Howell talk about a number of these. And so I'll be sending out her slides from her presentation the other week in this week's newsletter, and so that can be another thing to look into. As far as the sleep study, I applaud you for getting that. Right, getting the sleep study. Now, at this point, it sounds like you might need something a little bit more involved, as the maybe the OSA might not, or maybe there could be if it is OSA, you can look at the various different alternatives to the big octopus on your face, and try there's a small pillow, or there's
Yeah,
different other soft
I've tried the
masks.
little ones. Yeah, I've tried a couple of the masks,
And then
um,
there's the Aspire. You can try the Aspire. Or if it is something else, maybe if there is central sleep apnea or other sleep architecture, sleep wake disorders, then to go and see if you can get an additional or further evaluation from your physician. I'll also send out the slides that talk about all of the different sleep wake disorders, so that way you can look into them and ask specifically for your physician to look into these. Did you go into a a sleep lab?
no, it's Kaiser. They give you the cheap way, the little, it's the home thing on the chest, thing on your finger, and I mean, my entire sleep is just completely whacked, and I forget to
Yeah,
breathe and all that good stuff. But they, Kaiser doctors, like so many, they just kind of blow off head injuries, and
yeah,
it's the in-depth one that would show more if it's a central or not. But I've tried
correct.
the pillow. I've tried the masks aren't bad. They're actually quite comfortable, but
uh,
my ears won't pop from the pressure. They've been plugged for like 4 weeks, which is
oh,
like driving me insane. And I hear myself breathe, and there's psychological issues behind that for me. And they
right.
don't give you psychological support.
Oh,
So
yeah,
I'm not meeting my 90-day compliance period, and so the sleep
yeah.
doctor's probably gonna be ticked off at me when I talk to her next week, because they're gonna come take my machine back because I can't. can't do it. So, but anyway, I
Yeah.
just thought that I bring that up.
Yeah. Hey, perfect. Thank you for bringing that up. It's a really great point, right? Like you actually just described a problem, right? Where it's you go in, you get the home study, those home studies, they primarily only test for OSA, and so
Yes,
if that's the only thing they test for,
that's
then
what
of
they
course
tell you.
that's the thing that you're gonna have,
Yeah,
right? And so yeah, so trying those various different things and to bring that up to your physician for maybe in a more in-depth study into your sleep architecture to identify some different methods. But yeah, you're exactly right. You got to target that aggressively. Otherwise, the next day you're working up poorly. And then
oh,
the next day, with each
yeah,
passing day, it's only getting worse.
yeah. 8 years, and I'm
Yeah.
just, yeah, it's taking a toll.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely, right. Especially like we're considering Dr. Howell. I'll send the slides in this week's newsletter. Is essentially saying that if the brain is clearing out all of the toxins and the cellular debris and all of that during deep sleep, and you're not getting all the way down to that deep sleep, then you're basically increasing the buildup, right? And it's not, and it's making you feel foggy, and it's not helping your overall recovery. So in an effort to improve that, the sleep may be one thing, and to consult with a physician to really get more in-depth assistance. I would, yeah, that would be our recommendation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Really great point. And so, yeah, so I mean, like Kat was just saying, if you're getting this buildup, you're not sleeping well, and then you're shallow sleeping, waking up every 30, 60 minutes, and then that's disrupting your sleep architecture. And then you're waking up unrested, and then the next day, and then it happens again, and you're continuing to wake up unrested. That's definitely going to impact your cognition and your memory, right? And so when we talk about memory, right? And so when you bring up like, oh, I have problems with my memory, right? So of course there are different kinds of memory, right? So when you bring up memory problems, um, depending on what kind of memory problem will kind of depend on what are some of the recommendations, right? And so for human memory, right, just because for human memory we're restricting here to humans. We have three major basic kinds, right? So sensory memory, right? And sensory memory, this could be iconic or visual memory, or echoic memory, or sound, right? The sensory memory, right? The memory of you remembering that I'm saying something, right? 2 seconds ago, 4 seconds ago, 6 seconds ago, right? And then there's the short-term memory, right? And then in the short-term memory, there is now the long-term memory. And long-term memory can be either implicit, like muscle memory, or explicit memory, like semantic, like the stuff we learned in school, or episodic, like the stuff that we remember from our childhood, or that one time, the first time we went to Disneyland, or the first time that we went to the park, or that vacation that you always reminisce about, right? So that is our long-term, short-term, and sensory memory. Now, while for brain injury, most brain injuries, while that aren't uh, incredibly involved, right? So there wasn't a lot of tissue loss, and it's head injury, brain injury that even requires even just some loss of consciousness, or nothing too extensive in terms of loss of consciousness. Uh, the kinds of memory that are mostly impacted are the short-term memories, right? It's I'm not going to say it never happens, but typically it's not the long term, right? So you're not losing parts of your of your childhood, or parts of your long-term memory, or parts of how to tie your shoes or remember your name and that kind of thing. And so for most commonly is short-term memory, and this could be for a whole number of reasons. So the sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory are basically all connected in a certain way, right? And so the long-term memory explicit, this is what we can report versus what we can't. And so for memory, right, theoretically it's infinite, right? And the duration is theoretically permanent, right? Unless there can be a whole number of reasons, right? So for your sensory memories, those come in to your ears or to your eyes, and then if you're not paying attention, this will get lost, right? And then if you are paying attention, it'll get transferred to your short-term memory, and in your short-term memory, this must be rehearsed or practiced or organized, right? Otherwise the information gets lost, right? And so typically this is where a lot of the difficulty happens when short-term memories, right? Because in the most successful ideal situations, your short-term memories will get transferred to your long-term memories by rehearsing or relating them to previously known information. So basically rehearsal in your short-term memory transfers it over to your long-term memory in a process referred to as consolidation, which happens in a neural structure referred to as, do you remember what that is, Rosie?
Is this called the hippocampus?
Absolutely, that's perfect, Rosie. Right. So now, you the this consolidation of memories from short term to long term is now, this process is consolidated by the neural structure, the hippocampus, which has helped Rosie consolidate that the name of the very structure that consolidates into long-term memory. So
Yes,
that is now into your long-term memory,
it is
Rosie.
now.
Perfect. And that tells me that that is structure, that consolidation structure is intact for you. So the capacity to learn is intact for you, Rosie. And so with repetition, right, your Wednesdays, you're going to the university labs, right? You're in there, you're volunteering, right? Repetitive, doing the muscle memory with the pipetting, right? The capacity to learn is in there, right? So keep us updated on your progress, Rosie. I love that. So sensory memories, right? The first ones, these are sensory receptors in our brain, and they create the representations of the brain. So you see things, right? You know where the table in your kitchen is. Close your eyes. You can remember where the things are on your desk, right? Granted, it's not too messy. And so the echoic memory lasts about 2 to 4 seconds. So the memories that you're hearing, and so
I don't know.
oh yeah,
Just
what was that, Mike?
memory. No, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, and so the visual memory lasts for 1 to 2 seconds, and so sensory memory requires attention. So remember, our brains must process these sensory memories or they forget.
Daniel, cannot hear
Yes.
you until the music gets turned off. Absolutely cannot hear you at all until the music goes away.
The music is I think that might be coming from your computer potentially, Kat. So there might be like a tab open that it's got some sound happening. Let's see. Is anyone else hearing music from me? No.
It
Okay.
stopped.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, sorry, I
Perfect.
don't know. It just was like this super loud stuff.
Oh yeah. No, but see, that's perfect actually, right? Because sensory memory. If Kat can't hear me, she can't pay attention to what I'm saying. So that's exactly perfect, man. That is a perfect example, right? And so hopefully the rogue music doesn't come back on. So perfect. So short-term memories now. This is the process that holds the memory long enough for our brain to process, also called working memory. So if you've ever, someone gives you their phone number like 714-555-5555, then like you're the way you're processing, you paying attention, you're processing it, you're listening to that piece of information, and you're rehearsing it in your head. And so that's what transfers it from short term to long term. And so this involves a whole number of attention, right? You have to be focused, we have to be shifting, right? And then be able to divide our attention, right? So it's if you're doing multiple things at once, right? Like writing things down while looking at the screen while paying attention, right? You're shifting your attention. And so all of these things are necessary for your long term to consolidate using the hippocampus into your long-term memory, right? And so once it's coded into your long-term memory, it's done by organizing into categories, right? Your long-term memory categorizes your short-term memories into like, okay, these are for my chemistry class, or this is what I need to get done today for for the house. These are the chores I need to get done for tomorrow, right? You categorize them into buckets, right? These are my grocery list, where vegetables, for meat, for poultry, right? Bread, right? And you're kind of categorizing all of those things from your short-term memory, and helps with your long-term memory. So once they're transferred, it's organized. And then it's filled with other long-term memories until it's retrieved. Now, the more times you retrieve a memory, the stronger it is, right? So I mean, your address, you've retrieved that memory pretty frequently. So at which point, the more you retrieve it, the more times you rehearse it, and then the more times it is consolidated and stronger in your long-term memories, right? So these are called overlearned memories. So like your name, your address, how, tying your shoe, like you go and you recall these things over and over and over again. And so that way it increases the organization and the strength of that memory. So a key to a good memory is good organization. So later on in a couple of slides, we're going to talk about some different factors that you can use and incorporate into your everyday to improve your memory through improving organization, right? And to improve your memory. And so, of course, as we said, the more times you recall a memory, the stronger the bridge, right? And so, and the more times you recall a memory, then the more the stronger that memory is in your head. But every time you recall it, it opens it up for other influences to be re-encoded in that memory. So when you recall a memory, it's good because you have to reconsolidate it, so it gets stronger in the bridge. The memory becomes stronger because the more you recall it, the more has to get reconsolidated after you recall it. But when you recall it, that opens it up for influence, right? So let's say if you're not feeling well, or if someone inputs a part into a memory as you recall it, that can then lead to what's called false memories, which is particularly problematic when it comes to things like ruminating about past memories or past failures, quote unquote, and can really impact your mood. So once long-term memory happens, REM, right? Kat was talking about REM, right? So this is after stage 4 deep sleep. And so REM plays a special role in consolidation. And so if you're not sleeping well, right, like Kat, then it's becoming real difficult for your brain to consolidate, right? Because you're not getting to stage 1, 2, 3, 4 REM. You're not getting all the way to REM as efficiently as you should, or as you would hope. So that's making it more difficult to consolidate the memories, putting you at a disadvantage for the next day. And so as we talk about, when you recall a memory, it makes it stronger, but then it makes it open for influence, so that makes it a potential for false memories. And also memories are reconstructed and can be altered, and so, which is a problem, because if you're perseverating on, like, oh man, why did I do that yesterday, why did I do that, why did I do that, why did I do that, and you start thinking about all the past things of what you should have done or could have done or didn't do, then you are bringing back memories, and you're you're adding an influence of, of perseveration, because every time you bring it up, you bring up a memory, you open it back up for influence, and every time you bring it up, and you bring it up with a poor memory, bad idea of yourself, then you're influencing that memory to now include more and more negative aspects of your memory, and so really, this process could be really putting survivors, or those who are perseverating or ruminating on thoughts or memories, at a real disadvantage for a negative feedback loop that makes you feel worse and worse and worse about yourself, and which really may not be founded in any kind of truth. And so this is really important when it comes to identifying some of the things that you're thinking about, and whether or not you're adding undue influence that makes your memory seem worse, and your mood seem worse. So once transferred here, now this is the flow of cognitive processes model that we just talked about. So of course, we've introduced this beforehand. You've got to be awake, right? You got to be paying attention, right? You got to be awake in order to pay attention, and you got to be paying attention in order to process, right? So this is you have to be awake, sleeping well, to be paying attention. This is your sensory memory, so that way you can process the information into your short-term memory to eventually, hopefully, get it to your long-term memory here, right? And so this is that sensory short-term and long-term memory process that we just talked about, which then memories, effective memories that are are full and complete and effective, are then used to process our executive functions here, which is this is our high level executive functions, like planning, organizing, and prioritizing, right? So if memories are incomplete, then sometimes executive functions can be difficult, because you're trying to plan or organize with incomplete information. And then if you know you're doing incomplete information, that may make it more difficult for you to stay focused, and then prioritize, and then not and just not engaging in organizing or planning or procrastinating or putting it off. So it looks like you're having difficulties in organizing or planning, when in fact it's just the memories, the difficulty with recalling memories that makes it difficult to plan. And so putting things off until the next day, or the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And so another graphic to show what we were just talking about is sensory memory. So here you see this green arrow is visual information that goes into your eye. Then it goes gets processed by your retina, and then it goes through your cranial nerve, and then it decussates or crosses over, and then it goes into your short-term memories, right? And then which is processed by your hippocampus, right? Thank you, Rosie, right? The hippocampus there. I love that. And so it gets processed there in the subcortical structures, and then long-term memories are diffused, right? So long-term memories, another way to say that is long-term memories are stored not in one place, but long-term memories are stored in a number of places, right? It's stored, based on like how did it sound, how did it smell, how did it look like, what was the color, how did you feel about it, right? And so these short-term memories are then stored in a variety of places throughout the brain, right? And part of that is understanding that long-term memory isn't just required in one spot, right? It goes it's a concerted effort throughout a number of areas in the brain. And so information processing here, we have to first, before we get to the memory, we have to encode before we can store it, and then before we can retrieve it. So encoding, thinking of this, right? This is a computer like a desktop computer in the 90s, right? And so here encoding happens with the keyboard, right? In order for the computer to know what you're trying to say, you have to encode it or put it in words that it can understand. So once it is put into words that the computer can understand, then it's stored in here into the CPU. And then once it's stored, then you can retrieve it for later retrieval by through organized folders on, let's say, a desktop, right? If your files are organized in folders, it's easier to retrieve those documents when you need them. But if your like your desktop is just filled with unorganized bunch of documents, right? Just documents saved, then it's going to get real difficult to find the document that you need when you need it, right? So kind of in the same way, the encoding, storage, retrieval process is how we can improve our memories. So we encode, putting it into our own words, then we store it and then organize it for later retrieval. Yes, Kat.
Hi, thank you. So, and thank you for that. Because I tell people, it's like that same scenario. It's like my memories and the things in my brain, hopefully they didn't get knocked out of the brain. They're just like somebody threw all my files up in the air.
Yeah.
And especially memory. One of my, I don't know, 5 or 6 head injuries ago, I just can't pull in a lot of a certain type of memories. And I don't want to believe that they're just gone, because they're important to me, but I can't find them in all of the clutter up in my brain. So hopefully they've just, and I didn't know that they're stored in different areas, because I've got hit on every part of my head you can imagine in 20 head injuries. So so I'm interested on, like, it gives me hope that maybe they just got smacked out of their file folder.
Yeah. I mean, like that yeah, I mean that's a great way to kind of conceptualize it, right? So I think here is like, well, what happens when the hardware breaks, right? Or like the keyboard breaks, right? Now what? Right. And then so here now we gotta start applying the strategies, right? Strategies that are informed by our treatment targets, right? Based on your assessment and your skills, right? So really we're going to be taking a bunch of different strategies. I'm one way, like you're saying, all the files in your files just got thrown on the floor, got shaken up, right? So I mean, part of that, right, is to now inform the strategies. Maybe finding the calendar, the journal to kind of help reorganize things. Improving sleep, right, would be a huge one, right? Improving sleep, and to kind of help not only with you feeling more rested and feeling more engaged later on, but also helping with like the RAM and the consolidation of your memories, which then can help further sort some of the files, right, that you have lying around everywhere. And so I think that's great, right? So it's like part of that. Well, what happens? Well, we can start applying these strategies that are informed by the meaningful treatment targets or goals that we want to apply, right? And so, a part of what we know about memories and false memories is, well, what happens when you have no memories, right? And so here's a famous patient, HM, right? I kind of, famous patient HM, right? And so he was having seizure activity, and in order to to curtail the seizure activity, he went through neurosurgery, right? And so what they did is they removed or excised his hippocampus, right? So what Rosie was talking about earlier, right? So what happens when that hippocampus gets taken out, right? And so here is the hippocampus, this is a Star Trek shaped thing here, and then the amygdala, which is our a big part of our neural emotion center, is right there with the hippocampus. And so, well, what happens when we take out the hippocampus, right? When we did that, or when that happened, patient HM had his implicit memories. He had his explicit memories, only part of his explicit memories. So remember, from the very first slide in the very beginning, we kind of showed that explicit memories are things that you can state yes or no, or things that you can and things that you can't state. And so he could remember the things that he learned semantically, but he lost his episodic memory, right? So being able to consolidate, bless you, bless you, being able to consolidate new memories, right? His new episodic memories, being able to consolidate new memories was lost, right? And so and so in that sense, another one to think about is a concert musician, right? So when a concert musician is playing in a concert, right, it's like a cellist, right, is reading music, right? They're reading the music they're performing that they've read 1,000 times, right? And then their fingers are moving, right? And there's some implicit memory there, because they have muscle memory on where they are in terms of the music, what measure they are, what's the tempo, what's the feeling like, right? And what's the volume? Are they doing a crescendo? And so and they're connecting all of those memories in concert, right, in time, right? And they're keeping time, right? They're watching the conductor, they're looking at the audience, right? They're managing their own emotions. And so there's all these things that are happening in concert that happen when it takes into place all these different memories that are then encoded in a whole number of areas throughout the brain, right? And in another example here is these are memory athletes, right? So people with the best memories, right, who can remember 1,000 digits of pi, right, can remember all of the streets in London, right, that can remember basically all the words in an encyclopedia, right? Yeah, I mean, have you seen them? Like, all right, in this encyclopedia, page 307, paragraph 3, sentence 1, go. And then they'll remember it, right? And so these athletes, these memory athletes, in scanners, they see that their brains are highly connected, right? Highly connected, right, through all the different areas in their brain, right? So memories, enhancing your memory doesn't just incorporate one area; it incorporates a whole number of connections, right? And so how can we enhance connection, right? And so here we're going to be talking about three major ones: emotion, place, and story, right? These are factors that are associated that we can enhance connection amongst your memories, right? And so these are strategies that we are now can implement in over the next week when you all continue your progress towards your meaningful goals, right? You have your goal, you have your 3-month goal. Can you break that down to a monthly goals, right? And then can you break that monthly goal into a weekly goal? And then break that weekly goal into a daily goal, right? Or even just a weekly goal, right? So we don't want to overwhelm or anything like that, but just breaking things down to like monthly or weekly. So that way we can start taking active steps, right? And then these strategies that we're talking about in this workshop are just tools that you can implement while you take meaningful steps towards your meaningful goal, towards in functional activities, right? So that's what it's about. It's about getting you out there, and then I'm hoping to give you a couple of tools that you can use to make things a little bit easier as you move forward to those functional activities. So first one is emotion, right? Emotion is strong. I just showed you the hippocampus, the star shape, the Star Trek ship thing in the center of the brain, whereas right up catty corner, right, with the amygdala, which is part of the limbic system or the emotional brain, right? And so emotion and memory are highly intimately related. And so an example, right, are flashbulb memories. So having high emotion, can you remember where you were when you heard about the 9/11, right? That, like, it is etched into your memory, right? I remember I was in elementary school. I was like getting dropped off by my parents, right? And so that was high emotion, right? And the high emotion etched itself to wherever you were when you heard it, right? Like, you remember where you were, what you were doing, who you were with, right? And so high emotion, that's just one example. Maybe if where were you when you heard that Kobe Bryant died or passed away, right? These are things that events with high emotion. And so these high emotions can be distracting, right? So thinking about your event, right, depending on whatever your trigger is, right? Like mine are heights, right? Like my brain injury happened 17 years ago when I was pushed off a 3-story balcony. So heights are very triggering for me, right? It's better now, right, being able to process it, but heights were triggering for me. And so depending on your triggers, right, like let's say heights, like not every day I'm around heights, but let's say yours might be cars, right? Every day your trigger might be more common than mine, right? Or it's around, or if it's a person, or it's a sport, right? These triggers, depending on your triggers, may be distracting for you. And if it's distracting, then it's going to impact your capacity to pay attention. And if you're not paying attention, we just saw through the flow cognitive processes model, if you're not paying attention, it's going to be real difficult for you to hold in your memories, right? Or what if it's the opposite, right? It's so highly emotional that you can't forget it, right? Then and every time you think about it, it has that negative valence, right? It makes you feel depressed, makes you feel hopeless, makes you feel helpless, right? And so much like changing the emotional valence of core memories, we need to understand that emotions and memory are tightly together. And so like, what are some things that we can do to improve the connections between how we feel about our memories? And so I'm just going to give a couple of things here. And so one is breathing, right? And so the amygdala is part of the neural emotion center right there next to the starship. Um, and the pre-Botzinger complex near the brainstem, it coordinates breathing. And according to these researchers, it can help mitigate the locus coeruleus, which is another brain structure in the brainstem that that detects threat and stress. And so part of what these researchers were saying is that the locus coeruleus is noradrenergic in nature. So it spreads like adrenaline. And then that literally changes how your neurons, how your brains, how you perceive the world, right? And so using the pre-Brotzinger complex, what this can do is using a bottom-up approach, use breathing to stop this process or slow down this process. So think about any time where like you're nervous or you're about to, go on stage, or you're about to give a presentation, or you're about to, do a sporting event, you're about to begin a game, right? You get some nerves. Part of what people tell you, breathe, breathe, right? And like breathing is a low hanging fruit, right? It doesn't get enough credit as a very effective bottom up process. So bottom up meaning you're starting from the breathing, you can get the breathing to stop this process. So the bottom up, you can stop the adrenaline happening, you can slow it down, right? You can reduce it by breathing. And so that bottom up process can really help when it comes to consolidating your memories, because if you're hyped up, if you're nervous, if you're over nervous, you're distracted, you're in pain, you're not paying attention, and it makes it real difficult for you for your memory to be supported. So kind of if we can use this bottom up approach to support that process. And so bottom up, that's one approach that we'll say here. Another one is top down, right? So taking the cognitions, taking your thoughts and using your thoughts to overpower, right, the biological systems to calm and maintain some of your bodily systems. And so a top down approach, that would be things like changing the emotional valence of your core memories using a trauma-informed therapist, right? It's a specific kind of therapist, trauma-informed, to help you change your relationship with these memories, with these emotional memories, right? And how memories can actually be very, very painful, right? It's like memories can be extremely painful, right? And here's just one example to illustrate what I'm saying here is, memories can translate to very real pain. So for example, if for amputees, right, either through traumatic amputees, it's a phenomenon called phantom limb pain, where the leg is gone, it is no longer exists, it has been severed, yet the pain, the memory of that limb is pain. You experience it as pain even though the limb is no longer there, right? So memories can be painful, can be very painful. And so part of that is to identify, well, can we address the pain? Because pain is distracting, and distracting helps and not only is distracting helps us distracts us from good quality sleep. Pain can do that, but also pain can distract us from memories and remembering. Other things could be place, right? Also called method of loci. And so here they put place cells, brain cells inside rat brains, and so that when they stained them, they saw that specific neurons fired when it came to specific locations in a maze, right? So the different colored neurons showed fired when the rat was in the different colored places in these mazes. All right. And, for those who were passing, who wanted to become licensed London taxi cab drivers, for those who did not pass versus who passed the what they call the knowledge, right? We saw those who failed are in the white bar, those who pass are in the yellow bar. When we looked at them after their hippocampus size, right, their ability to consolidate memories, right, after, for those who failed didn't change, but those who passed had a significant increase, right? And so hence the place place is highly intimately tied with memories and improving your memories. And so hence place, loci, location, where is a home for your stuff, where the automatic places for when you come home, where your keys, where is your journal, where's your calendar, where you keep these things, how like where and these things are where you keep certain tasks, to-do lists, appointments, reminders, right? Your goals, your tasks, to-do lists, everything should now be really relegated to these automatic places, because once these can get associated with these automatic places, it improves the overall connection of your memories. Third would be story, right? These are basically enhancing your memories by making a story, right? So, narrative stories can improve serial learning. So basically, if you had to give a list of things, of words to remember, commonly to enhance your memory of that word list, you would create a story. And then also story, when you create a story of yourself, right? We're talking about preservative memories. Now you're thinking back to, oh, this memory was a failure, oh man, and thinking back to all these past memories, and you start perseverating on all on these memories of these stories of yourself and of your memory and of your capacity and of your lower capacity after brain injury. And that story is getting stored as a memory, and that enhances your and story enhances your memory. So what we need to do here is we need to break down those stories and then start putting in these different strategies to improve and enhance our capacity and our connection of our memories and of our activities, so that way we can be taking steps toward being more functional and being more intentful in our day as we take steps and progress towards meaningful goals, right? And so if we can do that, a lot of you guys are saying like exercise, right? Exercise, diet, nutrition, right? I saw, Mike eating his breakfast, love that. Rosie was saying that cognitive stimulation, right? Kat was talking about sleep, brain health pillar 3. Rosie was talking about volunteering consistently weekly at university labs. That's cognitive stimulation. And you were all in here right now, right? And you're all in here right now, and that's supporting the 5th brain health pillar, which is social connection, right? So all of these brain health pillars help manage stress, right? And help managing stress helps us, improve our worries, improve our sleeps, and reduces our distraction, help improve our memories. And so really, when we can do all these things in service toward brain healthy behaviors, we can increase our cognitive reserve, which is the brain's ability to withstand damage or stress and still maintain function, right? Higher cognitive reserve can compensate for, if they're, knock on wood, an additional head injury or brain injuries. Higher cognitive reserve can compensate for these things. And so how can we enhance cognitive reserve? Well, is the kind of things that we just talked about, those brain healthy pillars, right? And so for next week, please we will dive into executive functions and problem solving. So the homework for this week to next week: continue planning your full week in your calendar, tracking your sleep in your journal, and doing your brain dump when you need to. Second is to identify actionable steps in your 3-month goal or monthly goal, right? You gotta, because I'm not in your home during this cognitive workshop, because you're not coming in to see me physically, I'm not coming into your house to see you physically. While that would be great, we're not doing that. And so this is going to, part of the effectiveness of this workshop is going to require you to take active steps, right? And if active steps on your own. And if you can't do them on your own, maybe are there caregivers, family members, or even other group members that can help encourage you and keep you accountable for these steps, right? And so the third thing is to journal about your event. That could be your brain injury event or events. Are there aspects of it that are still traumatizing or affecting you? Right? It's a really important question, right? Because I mean, if there are, these could be triggers that impact your memories, distracting throughout the day, providing emotional pain that could be better managed. And all we have to do is just identify it. Right. So, because then what this could be doing leading to is the consequences. Right. And this could be, consequences at your relationships, consequences with your work. And then fourth, start analyzing your journal to pick out those problems, and so that we can brainstorm solutions together, right? Because next week when we talk about executive functions and problem solving, we're going to I start picking out examples, problems that we can help brainstorm solutions to. And so you can either email me your problem so you don't have to save them in the recording, or you can put them in the chat next week. And then lastly, schedule in your calendar 10 to 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, to take the Association with Brain Injury Symptoms questionnaire. So your answers will not be shared outside of this class, and it will only be used for informational purposes to give you feedback in service toward promoting your progress. And so the link is in the slides. The link is also provided by Vanessa. She sent out an email there. Yes, Sojourner, you had a question there.
Yeah, about the association with brain injury symptoms. I thought I filled that out prior to this workshop. Do we have to
Prior
do it
to
again?
prior to the workshop, um yeah, that was a separate one. So this is how you are associating with specific symptoms. So really just the questionnaires are I'll give you feedback to your email, only to you, so no one, this information is not going to get shared, about some different areas about that may be helpful when it comes to um, trying to progress and target as you move forward in your recovery and in throughout the workshop. So these questions are different. They are different. So thank you for the first time you did that before the workshop. Those were helpful for me to put together the whole workshop. And so these questions are different, that will be used for a different purpose and will only be shared within us and to you. So yeah, perfect. Thank you. That's a great question though, Sojourner. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, and in your week, right, remember to practice these metacognitive strategies, right? And so this is asking yourself questions, planning, goal setting, monitoring, reflection, self-regulation, making connection, cognitive restructuring, thinking out loud, using visual aids. And so before we close today, I'm going to show a video on the effects of chronic stress on the body. It's a quick one, but I will be stopping the recording for so that way YouTube doesn't block me the recording. So perfect, fantastic. See you all. Thank you all for joining us in recording. We'll see you all next week.